When Shaquille O'Neal sat down for a live interview, he expected tough questions, not a direct shot at his legacy. The room went silent when the host claimed his success was built on privilege, not talent. All eyes locked on Shaq, waiting for a reaction. But instead of getting defensive, he simply smiled and delivered a response so sharp that it left the host shocked and the audience equally stunned. The production room was bustling with last-minute preparations as airtime approached. Sarah, the segment producer, ran her highlighter over the safe topics for the Shaq interview. But everyone knew Caldwell had no interest in an easy conversation. He had built his reputation on pushing guests, finding their weak spots, and forcing them into uncomfortable territory. Crew members moved quickly and efficiently. The makeup artist dabbed at Shaq's forehead, while the sound technician adjusted his mic, and the camera operators locked in their angles. But beneath the routine, tension lingered. They had all seen Caldwell at work before. He always started with compliments and nostalgia, making his guests feel at ease. But then he would shift and press until he got the reaction he wanted. Sarah stood in the control room, tapping her fingers against her notes as she watched through the glass. She knew what was coming. Caldwell would try to push Shaq and get under his skin. But no one realized yet, not even Caldwell himself, that Shaq was not just ready for the challenge. He was about to turn the whole interview around in a way no one in that studio would forget. 5 minutes, the floor director called out, glancing at the clock. From the moment the interview began, it was clear Caldwell had a motive. They started light. Caldwell opened with a few warm-up questions about Shaq's latest business ventures, his TNT analyst role, and his continued involvement in charity work. But no one in the studio expected Caldwell to play nice for long, and they were right. You have built this brand of being larger than life, of always having the last word, Caldwell said, his voice smooth but pointed. But let's be honest, Shaq, how much of that is just covering up insecurity? The room tensed. Shaq's easygoing demeanor flickered momentarily before he let out a slow chuckle. Man, you reaching, he said, shaking his head. You want to turn this into therapy now? Caldwell didn't flinch. I don't think I need to, Shaq. Your career speaks for itself. You've always been dominant, but you make it personal the moment someone challenges you, whether it was Kobe, Dwight Howard, or even Charles Barkley. Why is that? Shaq tilted forward, the humor fading from his eyes. That's competition, he said. You don't get to where I got by playing nice? Caldwell nodded as if he expected that answer. Right, but then there is the pattern. When people criticize you, you dismiss them, mock them, or call them out on social media. What's really behind that? Shaq's jaw tightened, and the silence in the studio stretched. You see, Caldwell continued, pressing forward, a lot of people respect you, but they also see the deflections, the jokes, the bravado. Some say that's a defense mechanism, that deep down you still carry that chip on your shoulder from being doubted as a kid, from your dad pushing you so hard, from not being taken seriously in certain circles. Is that fair to say? The weight of the question hung between them. However, Caldwell did not back down. People want to see the real Shaq behind the larger-than-life persona, not just the one who dominates the memes. Shaq exhaled before letting out a low chuckle. Man, you're good at this, he said, leaning back in his chair. His tone was light, almost amused, but something was underneath it. Caldwell caught the shift and pressed forward. Do you ever wonder if you succeeded just because you were bigger than everyone else? The show's producers could have sworn that if a pin dropped, its sound would have echoed through the room. The silence was that heavy. Shaq did not react right away. He sat there, unmoving, his eyes locked on Caldwell, studying him. It was impossible to tell what he was thinking, whether he would brush the comment off with a laugh or shut the interview down on the spot. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. You think that's all it took? The camera zoomed in, capturing Shaq's face as he tilted his head, letting the question hang in the air. You think being big was enough? He asked again, shaking his head. Man, if being built like this was all it took, every tall guy at the mall would have 4 rings and a statue outside the arena. The audience burst into laughter, and even some of the crew behind the cameras smiled. Caldwell blinked, caught off guard by the response. But Shaq was not done. "Come on," Shaq said, grinning. "If just being big made you great, why wasn't Sean Bradley dominating the league? Why isn't every 7-footer in the NBA breaking records? You still have to put in the work. You still have to learn the game. You still have to wake up at 4, run sprints, and hit free throws." "Yeah, I know, I missed some. Don't start, but you get the point." The crowd exploded again and Caldwell tried to regain control. "But surely your size gave you an advantage." "Oh, 100%, Shaq cut in, nodding. "Just like your microphone gives you an advantage." He spread his hands wide. "I mean, without this fancy studio, what would you be doing? Arguing with people at Starbucks?" The audience lost it, and even the camera operators struggled to keep steady. Caldwell opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Shaq leaned back in his chair, still smiling. "Look, man, I'm big, yeah, but you still have to know how to use what you got. Otherwise, you're just tall for no reason." Caldwell attempted to interject, but Shaq raised a hand and told him to let him finish. Leaning in, he lowered his voice and remarked that while Caldwell had been analyzing him, it was time to turn the analysis around. Shaq then stated that Caldwell spent week after week trying to tear people down with gotcha questions, acting as if he were exposing something profound. However, he asserted that the deeper issue was Caldwell's apparent need to always be the most intelligent person in the room. As the crowd erupted, Caldwell appeared visibly unsettled. Shaq sank back, grinning. "See, you don't like it when the pressure's on you, but it's cool, I get it. Not everybody can handle the lights." Caldwell tried to speak, but the applause drowned him out. Shaq winked at the camera. "I ain't insecure, bruh. I'm just undefeated." Caldwell and Shaq stared each other down, and you could see it in Caldwell's face. He was not going to back down, so he continued with a question that cut straight to the bone, stating that being black gave Shaq an advantage in his legendary career. As the audience waits in anticipation, Shaq remains unfazed. A sharp smile played on his lips. When he finally spoke, his words landed with razor-sharp precision, slicing through the tension. "I think you are mixing up talent and politics," he says, "because at 7 feet tall and over 300 pounds, I have been grinding since I was a kid. So if some secret policy helped me dunk over people, I would love to hear about it." The crowd's cheers were still going strong when Caldwell settled back in and took another shot, pushing forward with a more profound question about how basketball culture has played into harmful stereotypes of black athletes being connected to gangs, scandals, and violence. "Let me ask you something, Caldwell," Shaq asks. "When a white athlete gets caught in a scandal, it's called a personal issue. But when a black athlete does the same thing, suddenly it's about our whole community and culture. So maybe you should think about why you are framing it that way." Everyone in the audience jumped, including the camera operators and production crew, joining them in a standing ovation. After what feels like forever, Caldwell tries to save face. His voice is shaky now. "I'm just trying to look at all sides, Shaq. But do you see how many young black kids think basketball is their only way out of poverty? Isn't that a problem?" Shaq took his time, carefully considering his response before acknowledging that the issue was real. However, he clarified that the problem was not with the kids, but with a broken system. He argued that if there were better schools and more job opportunities, no one would feel like basketball was their only chance at success. As the crowd surged in another round of applause, Shaq's words resonated, but Caldwell pressed on, questioning whether black people were simply blaming the system instead of working harder. Shaq countered with a pointed analogy, asking if it would be fair for someone who had started life with their legs tied to be told they weren't trying hard enough by someone free to run from the start. The host opens his mouth, but no words come out, while Shaq continues in that same calm voice. "Look, I've been blessed with stature and talent, and I've worked hard to make the most of it. But I also know plenty of people who worked just as hard and never got their shot because the system was stacked against them from the start." Caldwell shifts in his chair and tries to steer the conversation back to safer ground, mentioning Shaq's career highlights and business success. Still, everyone can see the interview has changed as Shaq's words sink in, leaving the host to reconsider his approach to these conversations about race and success in America. The silence stretched on. People in the audience looked at each other like they were finally getting something they had missed. Caldwell tried pulling it together, but his voice gave him away. "Of course, Shaq," he said, "but not everyone has had your chances. Yes, the system's broken, but can we fix it with just talk? Don't we need action?" Shaq looked him straight in the eye. "Change isn't about empty words, Ethan. It's about facing hard truths. It's about doing real things in our neighborhoods. Sometimes all it takes is one small move, like what I did as a player, to show a kid they've got a shot at something bigger." As the interview wrapped up, Caldwell surprised everyone with an unexpected admission. Shaq's words had made him rethink his views on race and success. At that moment, it was clear to everyone in the studio that they had just witnessed something powerful. When the video hit social media, it spread quickly, sparking immediate reactions. The backlash against Caldwell was fast. Many accused him of setting Shaq up with leading questions. Some criticized him for lacking respect for Shaq and the black community, claiming he was only trying to trap him. One person even posted, "Caldwell had no respect for anyone. He should be stopped." But despite the controversy, the impact of Shaq's words could not be denied. Even those who disagreed with him had to acknowledge the deeper truth behind his words. In the following weeks, thousands of people reached out to Shaq, many young black individuals who had often felt overlooked. They sent messages thanking him for speaking up, standing his ground, and showing them they weren't alone in their fight for change. Shaq didn't stop at words. Stepping beyond his legacy as a basketball icon, he threw himself into working with equality organizations, using his platform to push for real change. He became more than just a sports figure. He became a powerful voice speaking out about athletics and justice, fairness, and the importance of ensuring everyone had a fair shot at success. When a public high school in suburban Philadelphia invited Shaq to speak, he accepted without hesitation. As he stepped up to the microphone, the packed gym of the school fell silent, anticipation thick in the air. But he hadn't come to talk about basketball. Addressing the crowd, he said people were always quick to tell young folks what they could not do. However, he was there to clarify one thing: they were wrong. He dived into the story of his viral interview and how people told him to stay in his lane. That's what they'll tell you too. But here's the thing: when you see something wrong in your school, neighborhood, or world, that's exactly when you need to speak up. A week after speaking to the high school students, Shaq sat for another interview. This came just after Caldwell posted a lengthy apology on Instagram, admitting that he should have approached their first conversation differently. "Look, I saw his apology," Shaq said, relaxing in his chair. "But this isn't about him or me anymore. I just spent time with these amazing kids who get it. They understand exactly what we were fighting about." He went on to reflect on the work he had been doing in the community, from mentoring young athletes to partnering with organizations that provided scholarships and job training programs. He had visited schools, spoken to youth in underprivileged neighborhoods, and worked on initiatives to create more opportunities for kids who needed them most. That mattered to him. It was not a back-and-forth debate, but real action that could change lives. When asked what stood out to him most about his conversation with the students, Shaq took a moment to reflect before sharing a moment that had stayed with him. He recalled a young girl who had told him something he could not forget. She said that sometimes the most challenging thing was admitting when one was wrong, and he agreed with her. He clarified that he had no interest in dwelling on past drama. He emphasized that he did not hold grudges and acknowledged that Caldwell had apologized, which he saw as a positive step. Looking back on the entire experience, Shaq found an unexpected silver lining. "Those kids," he said, nodding thoughtfully, "meeting them changed everything." He went on, his voice steady with conviction. "They're sharp, sharper than we give them credit for. They see through the noise. They know what's real and what's just talk." A small smile crossed his face as he considered it all. Maybe this was supposed to happen. Sometimes you need a little chaos to finally set things right. What do you think about Big Shaq's epic takedown? Did the veteran superstar handle it proudly, or did Caldwell get what he deserved? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.